What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to Bad Takes in Football. This is your host, Bad Takes. Really excited to hop into today's video, but before I do that, this is a new channel, which means you are new. Please subscribe, like, comment, tell me more about what you're looking for. Really excited to engage with you. I really hope you enjoy today's video. The next competition I'm trying to look at here is actually with the Patriots, right? Beyond Stephon Diggs and sometimes a prolific Demario Douglas, there is really a big battle for the remaining spots in New England. And so I'm really curious to see what happens with this. A major issue they're having in New England when it comes to these battles is the fact that they have so many injuries at the wide receiver position, right? I'm talking about Kyle Williams, Stephon Diggs, Kendrick Bourne. Again, Stephon Diggs will make this team. There's no doubt in my mind about that. But, Kyle Williams, he's injured. Kendrick Bourne, injured. Right? So these players aren't practicing right now. They're not playing in preseason games. But you have just like a huge, I would say, you have a huge drop off between Stephon Diggs and then Demario Douglas, and then after Demario Douglas, in my opinion, there's a huge drop off, and you have a very deep sort of middle tier sort of wide receiver. Now, none of these guys have necessarily done much to impress in their careers either, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But Kyle Williams, he is a third round pick, right? They drafted him 69th overall out of Washington State. And, he had a really good year his senior year. He had over 1,100 yards, almost 1,200, and 14 touchdowns. In the preseason, he's had 3 catches for 24 yards, though, right? So that's not necessarily anything to be super excited about. I'm talking about Kayshon Butte. He's got 1 reception for 8 yards. And in his career, he's got a total of 45 receptions for 608 yards and 3 touchdowns. They were really excited about him when they got him in the draft, even though he was a later draft pick. He showed flashes, especially last year. But, again, Kayshon Butte, is he wide receiver number 3? I think maybe at this point he might be slotted to be that. On the depth chart itself on ESPN, they have Kyle Williams as that guy. And then you have someone like Mack Hollins. Mack Hollins, he's been around, right? He's been what I would say to be a proven consistent wide receiver. He's not a game changer. He's more of I would say, a mood setter, and he's a hard worker, right? He's most known for his blocking, but he's been able to show flashes, right? Last year he had, 378 yards and 5 touchdowns. So 5 touchdowns is pretty good for what I would consider to be, a wide receiver 4, right? I think he was probably a wide receiver 3 at times in Buffalo last year. But he's also been around the NFL for a while now, right? He was drafted in 2017, and he's been on 6 teams now. So for me, you have to kind of weigh the options when it comes to some of these wide receivers, because you have a bunch of younger wide receivers, right? Second, third, and first year wide receivers competing with a guy that's been in the league since 2017 for probably that third and fourth wide receiver spot. I'm also not sure how many wide receivers that, the Patriots are going to keep. When I think of Mike Vrabel, I don't think of like a prolific passing offense. He definitely relies mostly on the run. At least he used to. That might just be because he had Derrick Henry, but again, he produced on the run game, and that's what got him to the AFC Championship one year, right? Ryan Tannehill was the quarterback then. They did have A.J. Brown at the time, and he was a great wide receiver, but Mike Vrabel is definitely more of a defensive-minded and run game-minded coach. And so for me, I'm not sure how many wide receivers the Patriots are going to keep on this team. Again, I'm talking about Kayshon Butte, Mack Hollins, Jalen Pope, Javon Baker, right? I haven't even talked about Javon Baker yet, but Javon Baker, again, he was a pretty early draft pick for the Patriots. He was drafted in the 4th round, 110th overall last year. He didn't necessarily have the career he was looking for last year either. He had 1 catch for 12 yards, right? That's not necessarily going to keep you on any roster when that's what you produce in a given year. Again, he's younger though, and so you have to wonder, how do you weigh that? How do you make that decision if you're the New England Patriots? To me, the only option that some of these players are going to have is being solid special teams players. Because again, you also have people like Jalen Polk. He was drafted in the second round last year. And so I really think this is going to be an interesting position battle to look at because, again, it's kind of a pick your poison when it comes to this situation, right? For me, if I'm the Patriots, I would obviously hold on to Kyle Williams. He was a recent draft pick. I would definitely hold on to, in my opinion, Kayshon Butte. And then for me, after that, probably Mack Hollins, just because Mack Hollins, again, he is a mood setter. He's someone that is competitive, he fights, and he's an amazing blocker. And again, I think the biggest aspect of this offense is going to be the run game. I'm really excited for Travion Henderson for the Patriots. I think he's going to be a great running back for them. And so again, definitely pay attention to this Patriots wide receiver battle. I don't think it's necessarily being talked about enough. So I wanted to make sure to touch on this. That's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like, comment, tell me your takes. This is Bad Takes from Bad Takes in Football, signing out.